Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam.
In naming children, what are the rules and regulations in naming children, Muslim children?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala wa ba'd. Children are males and females.
Right.
When it comes to both of them, the general rule is that you choose a good name for your child.
Right.
And good name means a name that carry a good meaning, a name that easy to pronounce.
Right.
Okay. And also it could be good because the Sharia said it's good. In Islam, it is recognized as something valuable and something of virtue.
Right.
When it comes to boys, there are certain names Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam recommended. For example, he said, name your children after the names of the prophets. So, so we name Ibrahim, he named his son Ibrahim. So you can choose a name, one of the prophets' name for your son. Also, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the most beloved names to Allah, Abdullah wa Abdul Rahman. These two names. So these are special names. As for female, I don't know any proof that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam have recommended a specific name. But the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and mentioned that they're loved by Allah, or it's sunnah to name them. But we know that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam named a couple of times. He changed the name of a woman. He said, "Call yourself Zainab," for example. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he heard about a woman, a man, his daughter is named Asiya, sinner. He said, "Call her Jamila," beautiful. See, it's a good meaning.
Yes.
So that's in general one of the most important guidelines. And one other thing I want to say into this, names has to do with culture.
That's a good one.
And the names, some people think it is recommended to give Arabic names, or no, it's not recommended to make them Arabic names. It has to do with where are you coming from? What's your people kind of name that they use in the society? And when I say you're coming from, I don't mean to name your children the names that is known. Let's say you live in America, so you name your children the names that they are using in China, or in Nigeria, or necessarily in Egypt or Bangladesh. Not necessarily to be the case, but you name them with the name, especially if they're going to grow up, live and grow up and live in Western country. And these names from these different culture are names either sounds not very good in English, because some names in certain language acceptable. You transfer into another language, are not acceptable.
It's a disaster.
Yeah, it can be. Like I give you an example. I had a man ask me, I was in Saudi Arabia, and he named his son Crazy. I said,
Crazy.
He said, my son is crazy. I said, oh, mine too. Anyway, he said, Sheikh, is it haram to call him crazy? I said to him, the conversation in Arabic.
Right.
Crazy comes from karz, which is red cheek in Arabic. He said, those people in Ingilesi, they say, he said, crazy, it means insane, majnoon. I don't care. He said, they come to my country, their name is Bol, and they didn't change it. He doesn't know how to pronounce the P. So, Paul, he thought it's Bol, which it means urine, And he said, who cares about it? I said, what if your son tomorrow nominated to be an ambassador? The only thing we're going to hold back his nomination is crazy name. Okay, the name of his son. So
that's really crazy.
If you live in a village, it's actually funnier. He said, Anna, my grandfather is crazy. He said, he means like his name is crazy. So, anyway, the point, you need to look at there is a general culture, like a universal culture, and there is a limit, like a regional culture. Okay?
Yes.
After 9/11, Many Muslims ask me if they don't want to change it or they change the name Usama. Because when you go to school, at that time it was very, very,
Right, yeah.
Toxic name, or Saddam, for example, because of political reasons. That was in certain areas, in certain regions, in certain countries, but not everywhere in the world.
Right.
Okay? So even in some, maybe a name of, a very famous name in Sahabi or a famous name in Arabic, a great person, but when you say it in English or French or Spanish, it sounds completely wrong. Yeah. In this case, make sure that your son, when he grow up, is not, shame of his name to be mentioned. He doesn't need to fight the world for that. I don't need to change everybody's tongue and the pronunciations in order for them to make my name pronounced correct. And don't be arrogant and say, who cares? No, you're living in a society where people will be, around you. And I'm not saying also, in this case, you assimilate completely or forget your identity, but there is area in the middle. Easy to pronounce, easy to be recognized, and so forth.
Has a good meaning.
Yeah. Another thing also, you're not allowed to name your son or a child with certain names which is haram meaning. It carry a meaning which is not allowed. And not allowed because it is, for example, you don't name your child Satan or Iblis or Asiya, like sinner. Or you name your son, for example, Pharaoh. Because these names and titles are recognized in the Quran as something evil and bad. It will continue for the rest of Qarun or Fir'aun, Haman, and things like that. Also, some people have this culture, they open the Mus'haf and randomly pick a name. Just randomly pick, put their finger. And I heard like crazy story, like people names Adhaban Alima. Great punishment. Another person's name, Bismillah. You ask him, what's your name? He said, Bismillah. I said, okay, so what's your name? Bismillah. Okay, Bismillah, tell me what's your name.
Yeah, somebody.
That's his name is Bismillah. So why? Because they put their finger in a verse in the Quran called Bismillah. So all this are bid'ah and it's not from the religion, Or somebody asked me about a name for his son, okay? And that name, he himself cannot pronounce. It has letter not part of his culture. And I said, Habibi, you cannot pronounce your son's name. Why would you name him this way? Or vice versa, because I'm an Arab person, okay? He told me a name. In Arabic, in my language, this structure of the word is wrong. It's a verb, not a name. But in his language, that's a name. I don't need to be strict, no, I'll make fun. No, that's how they pronounce it. This is how, they do it. That's fine. Also, so you look at all this in consideration, okay? But again, if the meaning is haram, like Abdul Nabi, Abdul Hussein, it's haram. Not allowed to do that. Not allowed to name your son with these kind of names. What if also like to call yourself, the meaning doesn't fit, like the Messiah. You cannot call yourself the Messiah. It's like you don't call yourself Ar-Rahman, on Allah, and so forth. Even some ulama, like Ibn al-Qayyim said, don't name your children the names of the angels, Jibreel or Mikael or Israfil. But I remember I asked Shaykh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, what's the proof for that? And I said, Imam Malik is the name of an angel, Malik.
Yeah.
Then Shaykh Ibn Baz said, I need to review that. Write it for us and we'll review it in the Fatwa Committee.
Yeah, that's good.
And shows how humble he was, rahimahullah. In any case, so I even the best you can say, it's maybe not recommended, because some of the ulama said Jibra'il because of the meaning. Jabru'il. It also, Abdullah will be fine, but Jabru'il is the one who aid the messenger. Al-Jabru alladhi yusa'id.
Yes.
or the messenger of God, أو رسول الله, Jab'il, God, وجبر يعني the Rasul, or the aid, the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use him to aid and to help the messengers. So they said the meaning was not befitting. But again, I don't think that meaning is applicable to modern days. It's just that Gabriel, it's just a name. Okay? Some names can go both ways, like Gabriel, see, male and female can have that name. Many names can go both ways. Leslie can go men and women, I've seen. Some names are strictly to men, and this apply to men. Strictly to women, apply to women. In Arabic, it's very clear. In English, I never seen, in English will be like what, Kahari? Billy. You don't have a girl named Billy. That's a pure boy's name, and so on. طيب. Can I give my son an English name or American names? For example. If this part of your culture, part of, let's say you're an American, you want to name your child and pure Western name, that's fine. It's not haram, as long as it's part of the culture, but please don't do this because you feel defeated or you feel less. You make it, you do, but that's part, I like this name, some people give sometimes the middle name in English. Like my son, Khalid, his middle name is Benjamin. Benjamin is not an Arabic word, but also it is the short of it, Ben. So I thought Khalid
bin Walid.
Yeah, so Khalid bin Walid, that's one. Two.
That's a good trick.
Khalid bin Walid. I've been planning for that for a long time. Also, Khalid is a hard word to pronounce because of the Kha. So those who have a hard time to pronounce his first name, they can use the middle name, Ben. Okay. Right. Also, his brother is Yusuf, and Binyamin is the brother of Yusuf.
Oh wow!
So it works. Yeah, it works in many different ways.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
So Benjamin, and that also may be related to another issue in names. You can have a middle name for your son, and it doesn't have to be the father's middle name, because the middle name it means هناك أسماء مركبة.
Affiliated.
Affiliated. Like for example, you can have Mona Ayla. So Ayla is a middle name. Okay. For example, let's say Summer Sky Walid, for example,
right.
Or Lulwa Sky Walid, like my daughter.
I have Zaina Ann.
Yeah, Ann,
Ann,
so that's a middle name, can add. Murakkab, even in Arabic we have that.
Right.
Tarkib. A lot of Arab, they add the word Muhammad. Non-Arab as well in subcontinent. They add Muhammad is not a name of somebody, but just to add it to the name as for so many do for barakah and stuff like that. So the father's names should be known, even if it's not written in the certificate or the passport, but it should be known and recognized. So they understand who are the cousins, who are the uncles, and the rights of that.
In the birth certificate, it is.
Yeah, it is in the birth certificate. But be careful when you name your children. Make sure you name them after something of value. Like also, even if it is English names. Like I remember somebody was telling me that he named his son Rocky. I said, is it Rocky? Like somebody who's ascending? She said, no, Rocky Balboa. I said, Rocky Balboa? Yeah, the boxer, the movie, the famous person, because he's inspired by that.
Right.
And subhanAllah came to my mind the difference. Ibn Sa'd in Tabaqat said that after the Battle of Uhud, many of the Sahaba, they called their children Mus'ab. After the death of Mus'ab ibn Umayr.
Yeah.
And many named their children Umar and Abu Bakr and Uthman and Ali. After these great, you want your son to grow up seeing the role model, I'm named after this great person. I'm not saying anything, but I mean, it's allowed if you want, it's allowed, but it's good to have higher aspirations for your children. some names can be not allowed for a temporary reason because of situation. Not allowed. Like, for example, I don't believe you can name your son Israel. Even though it's a good name in a sense,
Yeah, it's the
for a
name of a
Muslim,
prophet, yeah.
because it has become so associated with a religion or with a political entity, you know, or a conflict or cause, you know, an issue for your child as you're growing up as a Muslim child. Also Judea or yani Yehuda, or you call your son, even the prophets, you know, Jacob. You can say Yaqub, but Yehuda will be something that became in modern days associated with something that's associated with a particular religion. So it can be a little bit of confusing, and that's why I believe these names cannot be used. Christian also is a name a Muslim cannot use for his daughter, you know, because it's associated with the identified religion today in modern days has specific definition. And so some also names associated with other religion like Buddha, or Nirvana. You know, it's associated with the God Nirvana, and it's a living things exist. So these are names are not allowed to be used for Muslims. So these are general guidelines in regard to the naming of the child, and you always can have a name, you can have a nickname for the child, and that's something that very common. And make sure that you choose the name good for your children. Think about your child, not about only you, and also think about you, your child, your family. You know, but the most important one is your child. When he or she grow up, I want them to love their name, proud of their name.
Yes, that's a very good point.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Barakallah feek.